You know, sometimes I'm just dying to knock on the doors of the royal vault and say, "Come on, just show them to us. We know they're in there." Because these aren't just legends. These jewels are real. They actually exist. It's just that they haven't been seen in public for a very, very long time. And it's not because they're broken. It's not because they've been sold. It's because it's as if they just can't find the right occasion for them. Which is such a shame, because some of these pieces could be brought out and sparkle again, literally tomorrow. So today, I'm going to show you the royal jewels that have been kept in the shadows for far too long. And the ones that, if I'm being honest, I am absolutely dreaming of seeing again. Before we begin, please support my channel by clicking on the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you. So, where do we even begin with a treasure chest this deep? I think it's best to start with pieces that tell a very human story, one we can all understand, the story of changing times. Let's go back to 1923. The future King George VI is marrying the lovely Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, and the nation is celebrating. Among the shower of wedding gifts is a truly spectacular piece from the citizens of the City of London, a long, elegant sautoir necklace made of 5 rows of pearls, all held together with a beautiful diamond clasp. In those early photographs, as the young Duchess of York, you can see her wearing it. It's the height of 1920s fashion, long, fluid, and glamorous. She wears it for a famous series of portraits taken at the Van Dyck Studios, looking every inch the modern royal. And then, for nearly 100 years, silence. It simply disappears from public view. It just stopped being worn. The most straightforward reason is simply a matter of fashion. That very long, flowing style of the sautoir isn't really part of the modern royal wardrobe. It can be quite tricky to style, but that isn't always the end of the story for these pieces, and we have the perfect example to prove it. You see, the Queen Mother received another spectacular sautoir for her wedding, this one a gift from Queen Alexandra herself. It was a beautiful piece with amethysts and a large heart-shaped amethyst pendant. Like the pearl sautoir, it vanished for nearly a century, and then there it was, worn by Queen Camilla in 2012. But there was a clever change. It had been expertly shortened from its original length into a stunning modern necklace, and it does make you wonder, could a similar new chapter be waiting for this beautiful pearl sautoir? That kind of quiet disappearance is one thing, but some jewels are so powerfully of their time, so specific in their design, that they almost become a portrait of their era. And for that, we have to turn to the master collector herself, Queen Mary. In 1901, as the new Princess of Wales, she commissioned a truly extraordinary choker necklace from Gerard. She called it the Love Trophy Collar, and it is a lot, in the most magnificent way. It's crafted in the grand Louis XVI style, with panels featuring what were called amatory trophies. That's Cupid's bow and quiver of arrows, crossed with a burning torch, all rendered in diamonds and suspended from a diamond ribbon. It was made using heirloom diamonds from her grandmother and her aunt, so it was deeply personal. Queen Mary wore it in several glorious portraits in the early 1900s, but even for her, its time was brief. Fashions changed very quickly. At some point, she passed the necklace to her daughter-in-law, the future Queen Mother, but there's no record of her ever wearing it. Queen Elizabeth II inherited it in 2002, and she hasn't worn it either. And while we might have to wait to see it worn, there is some wonderful news for those of us who have only ever admired it in those old, monochrome portraits. For the first time in over a century, it has been brought out into the light. It's one of the star pieces at the Edwardian's Age of Elegance exhibition currently at the King's Gallery in Buckingham Palace, and it's not alone there. A few of the other treasures we'll be talking about a little later have also made a rare appearance. It's a unique chance to see these sleeping beauties up close. If the collar feels a touch ceremonial, the tech crescent tiara is pure personal history. Its story begins with Queen Mary's mother, the formidable Princess Mary Adelaide, Duchess of Teck. She was a granddaughter of King George III, a larger-than-life personality with a great love for jewels. She created this tiara from diamonds left to her by her aunt. It's this wonderful, almost Gothic design of diamond-set wild roses nestled between 20 diamond crescents. It's completely unique. After her death, the tiara made its way through the tech line to Queen Mary. She, in turn, passed it to her daughter-in-law, Elizabeth, shortly after her husband's accession to the throne in 1936. The Queen Mother famously took the tiara on the celebrated tour of Canada in 1939, pairing it with evening gloves in Quebec, but after that journey, it was tucked away for good. Today, it sits on long-term loan to Queen Camilla, a hybrid of Victorian sentiment and Georgian symmetry that simply hasn't found its 21st century moment yet. From crescents, we move to straight, brilliant lines. The story begins not in London, but in the glittering final days of Imperial Russia. Grand Duchess Vladimir, one of the most prominent figures in St. Petersburg society, owned a magnificent Riviere necklace of enormous diamonds. When the revolution swept through Russia, her incredible jewel collection was left behind, hidden in a secret vault in the Vladimir Palace. In a truly daring mission, a friend of the family smuggled the jewels out of the palace in a pair of simple Gladstone bags, and they eventually made their way to her in exile. After the Grand Duchess's death, her children inherited her collection, and her daughter sold several pieces to Queen Mary, including that spectacular diamond Riviere. Now, Queen Mary, being Queen Mary, saw its potential. In 1928, she had the diamonds reset by Gard into an astonishingly long and versatile sautoir. It was a masterpiece of engineering. It could be worn at its full length or divided into two shorter necklaces, or even form a pair of bracelets. She wore it often in the 1930s, a cascade of pure light. Upon her death in 1953, it was inherited by her granddaughter, Queen Elizabeth II. And this is where this grand jewel's public life came to a gentle halt. The late queen, with her wonderfully practical nature, simply wasn't a fan of very long necklaces. Her famous, affectionate complaint was that they get in the soup. And so, a jewel that survived a revolution and crossed a continent has spent the last 70 years resting quietly, its story more dramatic than its recent life. But Queen Mary didn't just acquire and rework grand jewels. She created them from the ground up, often with a wonderful sense of history. In 1920, she decided to create a truly magnificent diamond stomacher, that very formal grand bodice ornament. To do this, she used diamonds from two of her own wedding gifts from 1893, a crescent from the town of Swansea, and another stomacher from the Maharaja of Kapurthala. It was a splendid creation, even if by the 1920s, stomachers were already considered a touch old-fashioned. In 1947, Queen Mary gave this enormous jewel as a wedding present to her granddaughter, Princess Elizabeth, and in her early years, she was very clever with it. She didn't wear the full thing, but she often detached the bottom section and wore it as a large, impressive brooch. It was a way of honoring the gift while making it her own. For decades, that's how we saw it, in parts. And then came 2002, the year of her Golden Jubilee. For a formal dinner at Windsor Castle, in a moment that felt like a deliberate and beautiful nod to her heritage and the length of her own reign, Queen Elizabeth wore the stomacher, in its full, complete form, for the first and only time in public. And just like the Love Trophy collar, this spectacular piece is also on display at the Edwardians exhibition, giving us another rare chance to appreciate its sheer artistry up close. If the diamond stomacher was a statement of personal grandeur, Queen Mary had another that was a statement of global power. This one was not just about diamonds. It was about the empire itself. We're talking about the Delhi Derbar stomacher. This was created for the absolute pinnacle of imperial ceremony in 1911, when King George V and Queen Mary were proclaimed Emperor and Empress of India. It's not so much a single jewel as an entire suite worn as one piece. A magnificent trellis of diamonds forms the base, but it was designed to incorporate other incredibly significant jewels. At its heart, you can see the Cullinan 5, the famous heart-shaped diamond. Below that, another part of the Cullinan 8 diamond is set within a frame of Cambridge emeralds. It was the ultimate display, a jewel so laden with history and symbolism that it could only really be worn for that one specific monumental occasion. And it never has been, in its full form, since. Its pieces can come apart, and the brooches have been worn separately, but the complete stomacher itself is a relic of an imperial age that has long since passed. And that idea of jewels being assembled, taken apart, and given new life brings us to one of the vault's most compelling puzzles. This is a quieter story about a much older piece, a beautiful pearl and diamond stomacher that Queen Mary inherited through her mother's family line. Its story begins with Princess Mary, Duchess of Gloucester, a daughter of King George III, who left it to her niece, Queen Mary's mother. We have lovely photographs of Queen Mary wearing it, a graceful cascade of 15 large pear-shaped pearls set among diamonds. So, what happened to it? Unlike the Delhi Derbar stomacher, whose component parts are well documented, this one's fate is a little more uncertain. It seems to have vanished from the inventories as a complete piece after Queen Mary's time, but jewelry historians have pieced together a fascinating theory, one that connects this forgotten stomacher to a tiara that is anything but forgotten. I'm talking about the Queen Mary's lover's knot tiara, the one so beloved by Diana, Princess of Wales, and now a signature piece for the current Princess of Wales. The distinct swinging pear-shaped pearls that give that tiara its famous movement and character? It's believed that at least some of them came directly from this very stomacher when Queen Mary commissioned the tiara from Gerard in 1913. And yet, I can't help but wish we could see that stomacher just one more time, exactly as Queen Mary wore it. But that is the great question, isn't it? We simply don't know if it still exists as a complete piece, or if it was entirely dismantled. Sometimes the most telling story lies not in what is worn, but in what is consistently left behind, even from a collection that is otherwise deeply loved. This brings us to a magnificent puzzle from the famous Grareville bequest, the Grareville diamond bow brooch. The Grareville inheritance, left to the Queen Mother in 1942, is a cornerstone of the modern royal collection, with its tiaras and necklaces worn constantly. Yet this piece is a striking exception. It is no small pin. It's an enormous, lively bow of diamonds created by Boucheron in 1900 from an even older tiara. The Queen Mother wore this showstopper, but very sparingly, and after inheriting it in 2002, Queen Elizabeth II was never seen wearing it at all. We know it remains safely in the vaults, as it was photographed for the Royal Collection Catalogue in 2012, untouched for over 60 years. Here, the reason for its long rest is likely a matter of pure practicality. While bow motifs are timeless, the sheer scale of this piece is formidable. An exceptionally large and heavy brooch isn't always easy to wear on modern fabrics. Still, we know that Queen Camilla has a wonderful flair for grand statement jewels and is never one to shy away from something spectacular. It does make you wonder if she might be the one to finally decide that an occasion is grand enough to bring this magnificent bow back into the spotlight. The Kent amethyst demi parure tells an even stranger story of selective appreciation. This collection, featuring a necklace, earrings, 3 brooches, and hair combs set with large, faceted, and cabochon amethysts, originally belonged to the Duchess of Kent, Queen Victoria's mother. The Duchess wore the brooch for portraits and the full parure to her granddaughter's wedding in 1858. After her death, Queen Victoria inherited the set and designated it as an heirloom of the crown to be passed from queen to queen. Queen Alexandra incorporated elements of the necklace into her dress for the state opening of Parliament in 1902. The Queen Mother occasionally wore the brooch with 3 pendants during the Second World War, as amethyst was considered a stone of mourning. When Elizabeth II inherited the parure in 1952, she wore the complete necklace and earrings exactly twice, most notably for a state visit to Portugal in 1985. The brooch with 3 pendants has appeared only rarely, including a state visit to America in 1991. Yet the main brooch without its pendants has become one of the Queen's most frequently worn pieces, appearing regularly with purple outfits throughout her reign. And yet it truly is a shame that we so rarely saw the beautiful necklace, which has a fascinating design all its own. It just makes you picture it, doesn't it? Imagine the Princess of Wales today, wearing that historic necklace paired with the earrings and the magnificent brooch in its full form, with all 3 pendants attached. That would be an absolutely spectacular sight. Let's step now into the cooler side of the royal jewel vaults, a world of turquoise and the refined elegance of early 20th century diamonds. The Persian turquoise parure arrives with the story of a jewel that was always significant, but never quite a signature piece for its famous owners. Its journey begins, as so many do, with Queen Mary. Around 1923, she acquired the complete set, a tiara, necklace, brooch, and earrings, all featuring vivid Persian turquoises set in diamonds, from the esteemed House of Garrard. The set became a magnificent wedding gift for her new daughter-in-law, Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, the future Queen Mother. In her early years as Duchess of York, she was photographed in the parure, the cool blue-green, a youthful and fashionable choice. Yet, when her husband unexpectedly ascended the throne in 1936 and her role changed, her jewelry choices became more formal, centered on diamonds and the grander colored gems befitting a queen consort. The turquoise parure was quietly retired from public view. Its second chapter began in 1951, when Queen Elizabeth gave the entire intact set to Princess Margaret for her 21st birthday. On the young, glamorous princess, the parure found its moment. The striking color contrasted beautifully with her dark hair, and for a time, the tiara stood as the most substantial piece in her collection after the legendary Poltimore. But as Margaret's own collection grew, the turquoises were seen less frequently. Notably, when Princess Margaret died in 2002, the turquoise tiara was not part of the auction of her jewels. Most sources suggest it remains with her son, the Earl of Snowdon, or perhaps tucked back into the royal vault. From cool blue to refined Edwardian sparkle, Queen Alexandra's Edwardian choker is a jewel with a different kind of quiet glamour. Alexandra, famed for her slim figure and love of layered necklaces, acquired the choker during the first decade of the 20th century. There's a definite lightness to this piece, delicate diamond swags and circles, a single droplet at the center, all set on a soft velvet band. Queen Alexandra's Edwardian choker carries a gentle trace of Edwardian elegance, a delicate shimmer of diamonds and velvet, subtle rather than overwhelming. Alexandra wore it on notable public occasions in those years just before the First World War, sometimes at the regatta, sometimes in society portraits, but the choker was never a headline maker. After Alexandra's death in 1925, the choker slipped into near obscurity. Decades later, it re-emerged twice on Princess Anne in the early 1970s, most memorably when she presented the Film and Television Arts Awards at the Royal Albert Hall, ushering this piece briefly into a more modern world. Since then, the choker returned to private life, living mostly in catalogs and a handful of photographs. No other royal has revived it for public wear, though its Art Nouveau delicacy would look oddly current today. It lingers as one of those borderline forgotten jewels that could, in the right light, feel just as new as the day it was made. We move now from the jewels of passing fashion to those of profound, almost sacred history. These are not merely ornaments, they are dynastic relics, and their stories are among the most compelling in the entire royal collection. First, we look to Queen Alexandra's Dagmar necklace, a wedding gift of immense cultural and spiritual significance. When Princess Alexandra of Denmark prepared to marry the future King Edward VII in 1863, her kinsman, King Frederick VII of Denmark, commissioned this extraordinary piece. Its centerpiece is a replica of a Byzantine-style reliquary cross, discovered, according to legend, in the grave of the medieval Danish queen Dagmar. Into this replica, King Frederick placed relics of immense importance, a splinter of wood said to be from the true cross, and a scrap of silk from the grave of the great King Canute. The necklace itself is an elaborate creation of pearls and thousands of diamonds, a true masterpiece. Queen Alexandra treasured it, wearing the full piece for her coronation, and she felt so strongly about its integrity that she bequeathed it to the crown on one condition: that no part of it should ever be altered. Decades later, the late Queen Elizabeth II did wear the necklace on a few rare occasions, but always without the cross. This choice has left a quiet question hanging in the air. Was the cross deemed too sacred an object for a state dinner? Or was its removal a way to honor the secular beauty of the necklace while respecting the sanctity of the relic itself? We may never know the precise reasoning. For now, this magnificent and complex piece is on view at the Edwardians exhibition, allowing us to admire its historic splendor up close. Queen Adelaide's fringe carries the quiet dignity of survival through a century of royal upheavals, but it's often confused with two other pieces that share its distinctive silhouette. There's Queen Mary's 1919 fringe tiara, which most people recognize from Elizabeth II's 1947 wedding photographs, and there's also the Queen's own City of London fringe necklace from the 1950s. But Adelaide's fringe predates them both by decades and carries a completely different historical weight. Commissioned in 1831 by King William IV for his wife, Queen Adelaide, it was crafted from diamonds belonging to King George III and Queen Charlotte. It is a true survivor, one of the few major diamond pieces to escape the Hanoverian claim of 1858, a legal ruling that sent many older treasures to Germany. This one stayed. The young Queen Victoria adored it, wearing it as a tiara in her early reign. It's immortalized in Winterhalter's famous painting, The 1st of May, and later, in her widowhood, she had it removed from its frame and stitched as a brilliant border onto her black court gowns. Queen Alexandra found her own creative use for it, wearing the fringe as a decorative girdle at her 1902 coronation. Queen Mary briefly revived it as a tiara, but was dissatisfied with its irregular shape. Rather than alter this historic piece, she wisely commissioned her own neater version in 1919, using diamonds from a different wedding gift. That 1919 creation became the tiara we know from royal wedding photographs, while Adelaide's original retreated into obscurity. It passed to Queen Elizabeth, the future Queen Mother, who had Gerard transform it back into a necklace. She wore it beautifully in the 1950s, a graceful diamond collar for a series of Dorothy Wilding portraits and at state banquets. After her passing, it came to Queen Elizabeth II in 2002, but with two other fringe pieces already in her regular rotation, this historic ancestor, the original royal fringe, has remained resting in the vault ever since. Finally, we arrive at two pieces that feel almost like royal ghosts. Beautiful, documented, but utterly vanished from public life. The Sapphire sunray bandeau may have begun its life in St. Petersburg, or perhaps not. Leslie Field claimed it belonged to Empress Maria Feodorovna, and certainly Queen Mary paired it with other confirmed Romanov pieces, but the true provenance remains wonderfully murky. What we know for certain is that Queen Mary acquired it, probably in 1921, and wore it through the 1930s with her characteristic flair for mix-and-match jewelry. She'd sometimes swap out the central sapphire for her carved emerald brooch from the Delhi Derbar, creating an entirely different aesthetic. It's a flexible diamond bandeau with that distinctive sunray design, the sort of piece that could work beautifully with modern fashion if anyone dared to try. When Queen Mary died in 1953, the bandeau went to the Queen Mother, who promptly ignored it. But Princess Margaret fell in love with the piece, wearing it regularly through the 1950s and 60s. She took it on tour to the Caribbean in 1958, wore it for the German state visit that same year, and again to Princess Astrid of Norway's wedding in 1961. Margaret also discovered the versatility of wearing the central sapphire separately as a brooch, a clever bit of jewelry editing that showed she understood the piece's potential. Since then, nothing. The bandeau hasn't been seen publicly for over 60 years, its fate unknown but hopefully still tucked safely in the royal vaults. Queen Alexandra's collier réussi tells a similar story of initial glamour followed by decades of silence. In 1904, Alexandra commissioned this magnificent fishnet-style choker from Cartier, incorporating detachable emerald and ruby drops taken from gifts she'd received from Indian Maharajas. The result was pure Edwardian luxury intricate diamond meshwork, supporting those vivid colored stones, sophisticated enough for a queen who was already famous for her jewelry style. Alexandra wore it for striking portraits with her sister, Empress Maria Fyodorovna of Russia, and famously paired it with Queen Victoria's small diamond crown for an iconic portrait by François Flameng that still hangs in Buckingham Palace. After Alexandra's death in 1925, Queen Mary inherited the collier, but made significant changes, replacing the original ruby and emerald pendants with diamonds. This was classic Queen Mary, taking someone else's vision and making it her own. She wore the modified version with Queen Alexandra's kokoshnik tiara in 1934, sometimes adding Cullinan diamonds as pendants, and again for her 80th birthday portraits in 1947. When Elizabeth II inherited the collier réussi in 1953, she followed the pattern we've seen throughout this collection, complete avoidance. The necklace was mentioned in Hugh Roberts's The Queen's Diamonds in 2012, confirming it still exists somewhere in the vaults. But it hasn't appeared on any royal neck since Queen Mary's final years. It's particularly frustrating because the fishnet design would photograph magnificently today, and the craftsmanship represents Cartier at its early 20th century peak. Looking at all these magnificent pieces gathering dust in the royal vaults, I can't help but feel we're witnessing one of history's greatest jewelry mysteries. Here we have tiaras that survived world wars, necklaces that crossed continents, and brooches that witnessed the rise and fall of empires, all waiting quietly for someone to choose them again. Honestly, after revisiting all of these incredible stories, it's impossible for me to pick just one that I hope to see again. Each piece is magnificent in its own right, whether for its breathtaking design, its dramatic history, or the quiet mystery it holds. They all deserve another moment in the spotlight. But now, I would truly love to know your thoughts. Is there one jewel from our list that you are most hoping will make a return? And on whom would you most like to see it? Thank you so much for spending this time with me, delving into these beautiful secrets. If you enjoy exploring the history and stories behind the world's greatest jewels, I would be so pleased if you would subscribe to the channel. There are always more vaults to unlock.